Olivia introduce themselves as you guys are coming in. So yeah.
All right, I'll start. So my name is Sierra, and I am a senior at Point Loma High School, and I'm going to be the head chair for Crisis this year in JMUN, the American side. It's going to be a joint crisis committee, so I'll be one of the head chairs. And my pronouns are she, her, and I've been doing JMUN since the 6th grade. I now do MUN, and I've been the staff for JMUN for the past couple of years, and I'm really excited to work with you guys this year. Developing your speaking skills and your researching skills in preparation for the conference, and whatever form it may take. If it's Zoom or if it's half in person, I'm not really sure. It probably will be Zoom. So I'm excited, and I guess we'll start the meeting in a few minutes. And then Olivia, take it away.
Hi, my name is Olivia Van Houten. I'm a senior at Patrick Henry High School. I've been doing JMUN and MUN since 6th grade as well. And I'm the president of the MUN club at Patrick Henry. So if any of your siblings go there, I probably know them. Or if actually some of you are 9th graders that go there. And I'm the head chair of IMO. So I'm really excited to get to know you all and talk about this.
First of all, I talk a lot. I'm Ella. I am one of the SGs for this year. So if you guys are new to MUN, how many of you are new to MUN? Put your thumbs up if you're new to MUN, the little reaction thing, or thumbs up on your camera. So you're new to MUN, never done it before. Awesome. I'm so glad you're here. Sierra and Olivia are gonna give you all the information you need for the beginning, and then other teachers will help you out. So every conference is run by a bunch of staffers like Olivia and Sierra and me and Catherine and Patrick. We all work together, and every person has a different role. The person who's in charge of the whole conference is called the Secretary General. I don't know how well you guys know the actual United Nations, because our whole purpose of being here is to pretend to be the United Nations. There's an actual real life Secretary General, and they're in charge of a lot of things in the UN. So when we do a model United Nations, there's a high schooler who's a Secretary General, because we're junior model UN. And this year we have 2 Secretary Generals. It's a very special year. I'm one of them. My name's Ella, obviously. I'm a senior at Patrick Henry High School. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I love MUN. I've been doing it since 7th grade. And JMUN is a special place in my heart because, I love older kids and doing it with a bunch of high schoolers, but middle schoolers will always be so fun to do MUN with. And then Catherine.
Yeah, so my name is Catherine. I'm having Wi-Fi issues, so bear with me. So if I cut out, let me know. But I'm a senior at Mira Mesa High School. My pronouns are she, her, and like Ella said, we're both Secretary Generals. I started JMUN in 6th grade, and then I started staffing sophomore year. But throughout most of that, I've been with Ella this entire time. So we're partners in crime, and we've been doing this whole thing together. So we're very excited to work with all of you in different settings, get to know you more. This is just one resource for you to get to know your staffers and your delegates, and Patrick can tell you about some more.
So, hi everyone, my name is Patrick. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a junior at Scripps Ranch High School right now. So this year I'm going to be one of the Assistant Secretary Generals. So like Ella said, oh wait, am I frozen? No, okay, no, I'm not. So like Ella said, there's the Upper Secretariat, and so there's 2 Secretary Generals, and then there's 3 Assistant Secretary Generals. So I'm one of them. I'm also the president of the Scripps Ranch MUN Club. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of the sort of behind the scenes stuff for the MUN conference this year. So as you know, this is the Delegate Outreach Program, and you're going to go here just to really learn the basics of MUN, since it's a lot tougher for your advisors to do that this year, since COVID and everything, not the best. So there's going to be webinars, which is what you're attending right now. And there's also going to be committee office hours. So that should be available to you. And if you don't have the information, we can send that to you later. But committee office hours are not mandatory, nor are these webinars, but they're a great opportunity for you to meet your secretariat members, or basically the people who staff your committees. And so today we're going to be going over research and stuff like that for the webinar today. And I hope you guys are able to learn a lot from it and to see you in the future.
All right, so basically what we're going to be talking about today is the research strategies and country policy.
All right, so first of all, we have 4 sections we're going to be talking about. We have understanding your topic, understanding your country's policy, tips for research, and who should I work with at the conference. And I'll be talking about the first one, understanding your topic.
Well, I did read one chapter. That's great.
All right, so first of all, when you get your topic for JMUN, there is always 3 topics, and I know it can be overwhelming at first, but to kind of break it down and hone in on specifics for your position paper and for ultimately the resolutions that you write, you want to really focus in on the who, what, why, and when. So especially in relation to your country policy and the stance that your country has on the particular topic that you are researching. So who is affected by this issue and who can affect this issue? This is one of the main questions that will drive your position paper and ultimately drive the country policy that determines how you act in conference and how you conduct your speeches. So this is really important. The what parts of the world does this issue impact? This is also really important. Honing in on the specific regions or even specific countries or maybe cities within a country that are affected is really important, and that specificity is also I'll speak a little slower. The specificity is also really important as well. So the why is this topic an issue? That is obviously something that is pretty self-explanatory. When has this issue been around for a really long time, or is it relatively new? Having kind of a general background knowledge on the topic and on what has made this topic come into being in the present day is really important as well. So next slide. All right, so this flowchart, don't be overwhelmed. Basically, breaking this down from an example, the South China Sea dispute. We have a few different players in this dispute. We have the United Nations, the United States, territorial disputes, all different sections that can be kind of expanded on to work your way around researching in this particular topic. So for example, how is the United States involved? Say this is your country, you want to make sure that your country policy is directly aligned with how you approach your specific topic. And what are the countries that are allied with this issue? You want to make sure that your allied nations and other nations that have been collaborating with the UN and your country in the past are taken into account, and that previous actions of the United Nations and previous actions of your country are kind of incorporated into your overall strategy. And then another really important thing is, so we talked about the countries, and then why are these countries having territorial disputes? The why is one of the most important things that can be focused on in your initial researching and initial notes that you compile. And the main, I think the underlying causes of a particular subject or a particular crisis is especially important. So if you go on to the next slide, for example, one of the topics that can be used to kind of explain this multifaceted approach for increasing the number of women in government in developing nations. So for example, if you're Germany, one of the main things that you want to focus on is the why, as I said before, and the initial why, and when you go about researching and initially conducting your foundation for your policy. So as Germany, you want to look up the stance of Germany on women's rights and the stance of Germany on and the stance of Germany on we can see. Okay, that's a good idea. Yeah. So the stance of Germany on women representation in the government, and if Germany has, for example, participated in any activism or political. Exactly. So if there's been any kind of how should I put this? Kind of like a movement or a push towards a specific topic or a specific movement or crisis within your overall topic, then that is something you should focus on. And that is something that can also kind of give you a first glance at how you should conduct the rest of your research. And as Olivia just brought up, so 100 years ago, women in Germany won the right to vote, and you can kind of incorporate, as I said before, historical evidence and previous UN resolutions or previous UN movements that have contributed to a domestic issue, or even domestic movements that have contributed to the betterment of a particular crisis, or the alleviation of a particular issue. So that is definitely important. And then if you can go back, I think that is all I have to say about the initial understanding of your topic. So if you want to take it away for the second one.
Sorry, I'm still muted. So I was answering somebody's question in chat. Don't worry, I'm going to get back to you. Basically, this is understanding your country's policy, which is extremely important when you're writing position papers and you're doing resolutions and stuff, which I think a lot of the times as a first-year delegate, you're not going to understand as much. So basically, I'm going to open up the Nation Guide, which is an awesome form that the Upper Secretariat made. Essentially, it just gives you a format for you to fill in with different things about your nation. The importance of staying on policy, it basically just means that you're supposed to represent a country in this conference. And so if you're not staying true to that country's policies, then you're not going to be able to, sorry, I just got distracted. So you're not going to be able to do well in conference because you're not going to be on the same track as your country is. For anybody wondering where this document is, I think it should have been emailed out to all of the advisors.
It's on the website.
It's also on the website, apparently.
Under resources, under delegates.
Yeah. And so basically you talk about the government and your official country name, which is always something long, like the People's Republic of whatever. And then basically they want to talk about the type of government they have. Like in America, we have democracy, not a I don't know what I was going to say, but not a we have a democracy. We also have a capitalistic type of economy. And so that's all important when you're thinking about so that's all important when you're thinking about how your country might feel about a topic. So if you have a socialist country, they're probably not going to want as much free market, which you're going to have to look into what socialism is and what capitalism is. Basically all of the things that make your country unique. And so the chief of state, head of government, that's basically
Oh, Olivia, I think we might have lost you for a second. So if you want to go back.
Okay. Did you hear, what was the last thing you heard?
Just talk about the government again a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
Just 30 seconds back.
Okay. Sorry, might have some internet issues right now. Basically, if you're talking about the official name, that's just going to be the People's Republic of whatever your country name is. Well, actually, it's not always that format. That's just an example. So a good example would be, we call it America, but the official name is the United States of America. And then the government type, that would be if you're in a democracy or in a kingdom, or so there's different types of government structures. And then another thing you might want to take into account with that is economic structure. So capitalism or socialism, you want to look into what those different types of economic structures are and how that might affect your country's policies on things. So like, for example, America, again, we're a democracy, which means we vote on our leaders, and we have a mostly capitalist view of the economy, which means that we have a mostly free market, so the government doesn't interfere in trade that often. And so when you're looking at the chief of state and or a head of government name, that would be like if you have a president or like some kind of ruler. Basically different heads have different policies that they lean more towards. Like if you look at America in our last election, as I'm sure you all like heard a lot about, we have Trump, who had a very different standpoint than Biden. And so basically you'll want to take into account what your president or king or whatever type of ruler you have in your country, what their stance is, because that'll heavily affect what your country's stance will be on that issue. And so then you want to look at the people in your country, what their official languages are, their major religions, because this can affect a lot how your country feels on things. Like, I know the major religions in, let's say, China, Buddhism, there's not a lot of Christianity in China, so that might affect some of those things. Or like, probably a better example would be like Israel. So a lot of Jewish people relate heavily with Israel, and so that might affect their political stances on different issues, like the Palestinian issue, where there's like a religious war, not war, but like there's religious tension there.
A land conflict.
Yeah. And then you'll want to look at the different populations, like the dominant race culture. If there's a lot of different cultures in one area, that could lead to more tension. Like we're seeing in America right now, where there's a lot of tension between different cultures. Like there's people in the South who have a very different lifestyle than people who are living on the coast like we are. And so when you have a lot of different cultures in one area, that can lead to a lot of tension. And you can also look at the surrounding states and what their cultures are. And so that can tell you a lot about how a particular country might interact within itself or with surrounding countries. And then, have there been any prejudiced acts passed by your government that served one specific population? A good example of that is America. We had slaves in our country for a very long time, which is our country's shame, which Ethan, I think I will get right onto that after I explain this part. Basically, if there's any, like, slaves were a very great stain on our government for a very long time. If you're looking at, say, the political standings of somebody from the South in the Civil War, I know that nobody's doing that this year because we have the American Revolution instead, but it might be very important to look at like the different prejudices between countries, or maybe a more recent example would be like the recent act passed by Donald Trump that says trans people can't serve in the military. That could be conceived as prejudice, and so that definitely serves the cisgender population much more than the transgender population. And then one person had a question. If your country is currently in the state of a civil war, for example, and in the position where the legitimate government no longer has any power, what government would you represent? De facto government or the legitimate government? Yemen as an example.
I'm gonna help answer this question. So
Yeah.
That is tricky. A lot of countries, there's a good amount of countries who are in conflict right now, and the government is kind of like falling apart. So for Yemen, in your case, sorry, I don't know who it was, but in your case, you're going to be representing the official government, because the official government is the part that is the member, the member of the United Nations, right? When you become a member state of the United Nations, you sign a little paper, you're there. But the person who represents, in real life, the person who represents that nation is appointed by the government. So this would be the government. So in your case, whoever's representing Yemen, you would be representing the actual government, even if it's falling apart. But part of your policy might be that there is a revolution going on, so you aren't able to provide as much aid. Or, part of your policy might be that you are super strict and don't like any of the rebels. So you would be representing the original government and the official government, but you definitely would have to consider and think about everything that's going on contemporary to your country.
I'm going to answer another question. You do not have to speak in the language that your country speaks in. You can speak in English. We actually very much encourage that you speak in English, because that is the primary language that we will be using. Yeah, that made me happy, because it would be fun if we had everyone speaking different languages. Okay, so basically, if you're looking at the climate, we have different, there's often very different people living in sorry, I'm distracted. There's basically, this part isn't too important to policy, but it's more just is this a tropical climate? Is it really cold all the time? Just basically so you can get to know your country better. It's not really that important to policy. Major cities, this is really important, because then you can look up any acts passed by just that city, or different things that are happening in the major cities in your country. And then environmental status. This is really important, especially if you're in a committee like UNEP, where you need to know how your country is doing environmentally. This basically just lets you know their policy on the environment. do they do a lot to make sure they're using sustainable resources, or maybe not? And then natural resources. This will let them know that you know a lot about their trade, what they're exporting, what they're importing. With transportation, ports and waterways, this has to do a lot with IMO, represent. And so you're going to look at where they're trading from. Do they have a coast? Because that's really important if you're looking at their trading. Because fun fact, 80% of trade is done over water. And so also infrastructure status, this basically just lets you know how the economy's doing. This is really important to let you know, is your country going to be able to help with some of these issues? Because there's a lot of countries in the world that don't have the resources to help in other countries. And so you might want to call on other countries to help more when you're writing resolutions and stuff. And then economy. Basically, this is what I've been talking about a lot of the time. If you're looking at economic overview, capitalism, socialism, other examples of economic structures, democratic socialism, how does your country view the economy, and how does the government get involved a lot, or maybe not as much? And then the GDP is it's the gross domestic product, I think. And yeah, it is. And so basically that just lets you know how much money your country is making. Per capita means per person. And then in order to compare that to the United States, it would probably be important for you to research that as well, just so you can get the right perspective on that. And then composition of labor force, that basically just means is there a lot of people in your country that are doing manual labor, or are there more people doing how a lot of people are doing in America, office jobs, or working on computers? And then major exports and imports are say your country, there's a lot of gold in your country, so you're going to export that a lot, but you might not have as much farming. You might not have as much farming, so you might need to import more food. And then major trade partners. This is really important, especially when you get into like Caucus Blocks and stuff, which is like your allies. So your major trade partners are going to be the people that you probably want to hang out with during conference. And then agricultural products, you want to know like, what are your people eating? Because that can also tie in with the imports and exports, like how wealthy is your country? And then industries, that's also really important because you can tell like, oh, my country has a lot of oil, so they're probably going to be a pretty wealthy country. Or if your country doesn't have a lot of industry and they mostly just do manual labor, then you're probably not going to be as wealthy. And then transnational issues, like historic adversaries. Like historically, the U.S. and Russia have not been on very good terms. Like look at the Cold War. So you might not want to be allies with them during conference. And then if you look at conflicts, past and present, this like similar thing. Like you want to look at who your country hasn't really been friends with over the years. And then allies, like who you want to hang out with during conference. Military, this is really important if you're looking at like not pacifist, because I don't think any country is truly pacifist, but if you're looking at a country who is really fast to get into wars or might be a little more cautious about it due to like lack of infrastructure or like political instability. And so role in the military and the government, this is really important if you're looking at like what your country's stance is like on different military topics. And then date admit to the UN. You want to know how involved your country has been in like internationally. So if they got admitted to the UN in like a really recent time, they might not be as up to date as other countries are. And then if you're looking in UN peacekeeping missions, that might mean that your country is a little more well off if they're helping with peacekeeping, and they want to help solve they want to help solve problems in other countries. And then has the UN ever had to intervene? That's just basically letting you know like, oh, my country might have some issues, so I might not be able to help out other countries as much. And so summing up everything we just talked about, that was a really long time. You want to figure out what your country's primary goals, interests, and concerns are in the international community. So you want to know what topics your country is interested in, what stances they're going to take on those topics, and basically everything that they are all about, you know? So now I am going to pass it back to Sierra.
All right, thank you. So first of all, I'm going to answer a question that was just put in the chat. So it's a really good question. The question is, my country has a lot of money in oil trade, but is usually considered a poor country, and where would it go financially? So I think that the economy, first of all, is something that drives a lot of policy issues and disputes within countries, and on not just a domestic standpoint, but also on an international one. So considering that a country is, even if it is rich in oil or if it is rich in a particular resource, you have to consider how that affects the general citizen. And a lot of the time, or for example, a monopoly can be held over a particular resource such as oil, or it can be more government owned, and you want to take into account who owns that particular resource and who has the power in that particular situation and who benefits from it. If the people benefit, and if that increases maybe trade with other nations, and if that trade can subsequently benefit that nation in terms of their economy overall, or if it benefits that nation in terms of maybe military spending and how that money is eventually funneled into resource spending or resource allotment. And it's really multifaceted, but in general, I would say focus on the source of it, where the money goes to, who that money benefits, and not just domestic relations, but also international ones in terms of that particular resource, or in this case, oil. So someone asked when we were assigned countries, and actually I do not know the answer to that question. Ella, do you know when they were assigned countries?
Sorry, say that again?
This person was asking when they were assigned countries.
Oh, okay. So that's something your advisor should be doing for you. Who asked the question, actually? Oh, what class, what school are you from? You can unmute yourself or say it in the chat. Preferably say it in the chat. Hilltop. Okay, so your advisor for Hilltop will assign you your country. I believe you guys only have one. I'm not sure, but that's a question for your advisor. We don't assign the countries. We give you a list of countries, and then your advisor tells you which one of that list you are. So, okay, awesome. And then we had a question from Addison. For my position paper, it says I have an open forum for subjects. What does that mean? What do you mean your position paper? Oh, are you in Security Council?
Yeah, sorry, I was just messaging her back. She's in SC.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically that means that you have an open, like, you don't really have a lot of limits on what you can write about. Like most of the other committees have topics, like IMO's topics are megaships, environmental effects of ships, and the seafarers and the global supply trade during crises. So basically the kids in those committees are limited to those topics. Whereas if you're in Security Council, you basically can talk about anything you want, which is pretty cool.
As long as it's a security issue, but any global issue, as long as it's a security.
All right, nice. If you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat again, and we can go on to number 3, research tips. So this is a really important section. At your whole basis of your position paper should be, but can you get back to that slide really fast? Should be based on UN positions and UN substance. So first of all, when you're researching your topic, what I always love to do is, word for word, research your topic, in your search bar, and put United Nations in front of it or as the last word. And it's really helpful for getting that, first basis of facts on that particular issue. And keywords obviously are really important. If there is a specific keyword such as wild, so for instance, say your topic is illegal wildlife trade, you could look up specifically wildlife trafficking. I guess that's not the best example because that's a pretty short topic, but say you had something like genome editing and CRISPR technology, you could look up a specific term within that, such as CRISPR technology, and from there you can get more of a comprehensive view on maybe country policies relating to that specific technology and thus that specific practice. And for example, there's many really good websites that can be used to accurately give you information about not only your country policy, but also about the topics in general and the facts that you need to write your papers and your resolutions. So first of all, the UN website is really helpful. This obviously is very, very reputable. We are obviously model United Nations, so this is one of the ones that will be your best friend. And the Council of Foreign Relations, that's also another website you can use. Official government website for your country, that is something that will give you specific facts, maybe for your nation guide, for the part of your position paper that talks about country policy and things that your country has done on that specific topic. And then this link, I don't know if you want to go to this, Olivia, the Delegate PAL, and it basically goes into depth on specific country policy and details regarding that. So I'll wait for that really fast. And it's really helpful for getting, kind of a compact version of a specific topic in relation to your country. So as you can see, you type in your country, maybe just like click a random one. And it gives you things you can have as part of your nation guide and as part of the foundation of how you view your country policy and how you view the, for example, geography, the economy, the political atmosphere of your country. So it gives you a map. So this is a really good way to kind of get that initial like foundation of your policy. So let's go back to these slides. And I think the next thing we're going to be talking about is the background guide. So you can just go to the unit background guide, which is going to be our example for today. So the United Nations Environment Program background guide, scroll down a little bit, and the first thing that you can see is a letter from your head chair. If you're in UNEB, you can read this later at your leisure, and all of your background guides have a letter from your head chair for no matter what committee you're in. So scroll down, and so key terms, really fast. This is an extremely important part of basically your initial researching of a topic. And if you want to focus on not only the terminology and the the meaning behind the words, I think that it can definitely give you a good starting place as to how to conduct your research and how to conduct I think in general how to conduct your problem solving and your problem solving plans. And I think that if you want to even focus in on some of these terms in looking them up along with keywords such as United Nations or UNEP, that would be really helpful as a starting point. So for example, I'll just go over this really fast. There's a lot of terms that you should be familiar with in UNEP, such as malnutrition, lack of proper nutrition. That's pretty self-explanatory, but then there's also really specific terms such as the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, and that's something that is kind of a hint to look it up, and it's a hint to kind of know what that is and know how that impacts your topic and how that impacts your country's stance. So you can scroll down. So for example, there's always 3 topics in JMUN, General Assembly committees, as you know, and so this will be on the website, on the San Diego Regional JMUN website. So go through your background guide, take the time to read everything, and especially pay attention to these stop and think blurbs. Those little characters are really cute. It's reminding you to stop and think about a specific, topic or a specific instance that you should be aware of in the paragraph before. So for example, how does plastic pollution harm oceans? And these topics and these questions in general are to focus you. They are to focus you on specific points within the background guide that will help your research basically extend beyond what is given to you. So what's given to you is a lot of facts and a lot of substance that is the basis of the topic. And it's basically something that everyone will know going into conference and everyone will be aware of. So you need to expand on these topics and expand on these facts. And to do that, you need to think in a way that gets at the why and the how does this happen. And so these questions will help you do that. So if you want to answer these questions, they can really help drive your speech formations, writing speeches and writing notes on how you want to impact the flow of debate in conference. And I know that's going to be touched on in a lot of later webinars, so do not worry about that right now, but it'll help you kind of get a sense of what your country is trying to do and what your country plans to do in resolutions and in collaboration with your fellow allies. So scroll down. And then I'll just go to the questions. Oh, so really fast, the UN involvement is something that you should be familiar with each topic. And this is a little shorter of a section compared to the background guide or the background part of the background guide, I should say. And it is something that you need to be familiar with and something that, especially in terms of resolutions. And if you want to look up your country in conjunction with the resolutions that are in general in most of the UN involvement sections, that would be really helpful. If you know that your country has been actively involved in resolutions and in signing treaties in that particular topic, that can really guide your formation of the policy statements in the background guide and things of that nature. So that's really important. I can scroll down.
I just want to say really quick, I know that some of the topics are a little newer this year, like megaships. We had a lot of trouble trying to find stuff that the UN had done. So if you come across that, like, don't really worry too much about it and just explain, oh yeah, this is a really new topic, so we're looking at this from a different perspective.
Yeah. All right, so case study. This is kind of going along the lines of setting up for like resolution building and the steps you should take to kind of pinpoint one specific topic within a broader, scheme of the crisis. So, for example, this one. So I think if you can scroll up really fast, I think this topic for UNEP is. Oh wait, go down really fast. Oh, there we go. Protecting oceans from increased plastic use. So for now, going back to the case study, obviously oceans are huge. They make up more, territory than land itself, and it's something that's so broad that needs to be pinpointed, and something that affects multiple species or many species, I should say, and has multiple impacts. So for your resolutions, you want to focus in on one specific topic, and thus the case study will help you kind of get a handle on that first pinpointing of a topic. So this one is talking about and the albatross being affected by ocean waste and by plastic in general, and this will kind of get you started on the road to other topics that are related to the case study and that are related to the topic in general. So scroll down and we will go to the last part of the background guide.
Just really quick, somebody asked how long is the conference in May. It's about 2 days. It's from like 9 to 3 both days, but I think it's a little bit longer the second day because we do like awards and stuff. Yeah.
Awards usually last to like 5:30 or so, so they'll be a little longer. So suggested sites. This is an amazing place to start researching, and if you're kind of confused as to how to start, or if you're feeling overwhelmed, so some of these topics can be pretty intricate, and they're a lot of the times drawing from different aspects of not only like domestic policy but also international policy. And I think that kind of focusing in on the core of the topic is really important, and these sites were used by people like Olivia and myself, who wrote the background guides and have used these exact websites that are reputable to write them. And so if you want to browse through them, that would be an amazing place to start your research. And then I think the questions part is the last thing. Is that at the bottom?
The questions are the stop and think, so like they're integrated throughout the whole thing.
Okay, nice. So then that is it. There's gonna be 3 topics, so go through the background guide, kind of get a handle on the situation and the topic at hand, and you'll be good to go. And so we're gonna go on to the last section. So Olivia.
Okay. If you need help while you're searching, sorry, I'm just gonna answer a question really quick. If we need help while we're searching, who do we go to? If you need help, you can I think all of the chair emails are on the website. I could be wrong. I could just be saying lies, but actually I can put my email in the chat if you need that. And then also Ella just reminded me, we have office hours every 2 weeks for each committee. Your advisor should have let you know about that. Nicholas, you are correct. You can attend the office hours. I just had my office hours today. That was very fun. We had 1 person show up. We're not expecting like a lot of questions right now, but if you need help, you can always like reach out to us. You can reach out to your advisors. You have a lot of resources, I think. If your advisors are not being helpful, because I'm sure there's a lot of advisors who are not used to this like virtual environment, then definitely like here, I'll put my email in the chat and you guys can just like shoot me an email and I will try to help you in whatever way you can and whatever I can. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next section now. Whoa, my screen just like broke. What is happening? Oh, okay. Figured it out. Tech genius right here. Okay, wait. My office hour. Okay, so my office hours is once a week on Tuesday. It never specified if it was this week or next week, so I don't know if I missed it. It should be. Ella, I don't know if you want me to bring up the office hours schedule.
What committee? Do you mind typing in the chat what committee you are? And the office hours schedule is under the delegate outreach
UNESCO.
program. Okay, UNESCO. So on the delegate outreach program tab on the website, there is a little Google Calendar, and the Google Calendar shows you every single day there's going to be an office hour. Yeah, the link just sent in chat. So UNESCO, you did not have office hours Tuesday. Your first office hour is the 17th, which is next Tuesday. So for anyone else confused, if you missed your first office hour, that's totally fine. Again, they're not required. They're just a place for you to go and see the dais, the chairs, and be like, I have a question. Can you help me out with this? Because they know the topics pretty well. But that is on the link that Catherine just sent in the chat. And earlier you were talking about getting in contact with your head chairs. I just wanted to bring up, I sent another link in chat that goes to the committee resources. We have these committee resource documents for each individual committee. And on that is your agenda, the link to the background guide, the link to the real world UN website, and email information for both your upper secretariat representative for that committee, excuse me, and the head chair. So everything you need is there. Just wanted to throw that out there. Both of those links are in the chat.
And before we go on to the next section, actually, someone had a question, so I'm going to read it out really fast because it kind of has to do with like background stuff. So it says, what topics are most commonly used for Security Council? Would it be better for me to write more about things like my country has been in, like military issues or things like the pandemic? So to answer that question, I am not Security Council, but in terms of what I know about it and using my knowledge from all of my General Assembly experience, I would say focus on, it can really be anything for Security Council, but focus on things that impact international relations. And what I've kind of learned from like talking to people who do Security Council a lot is the relationships between countries is really important. And in terms of the pandemic, that's definitely something you can talk about. That is very current, and definitely military issues is something that is current only if it is still happening in the present day. So don't do something, even if your country was recently involved in a conflict or had military involvement in some country, do not expand on that unless it's another country that, did have that particular situation happen to them. And does anyone have anything else to add for Security Council? Because that's not my area of expertise, but I did, I kind of talked about what
yeah, that's perfect. Exactly what Sierra was saying about just security issues, really anything. You have a lot of freedom, but two things I'll say is, again, like Sierra said, not past issues, and be careful about like if it's like an actual conflict that's taking place or a possible conflict. You want to distinguish between the two. And the background guide for Security Council has a bunch of sections about the history of the Security Council and current topics and different regional issues and everything. So the background guide is always a great place to go. It's going to guide you in the right direction. And if you have any more questions, you can go to office hours for Security Council. So
yeah, and then focus on like treaties and resolutions, especially. For Security Council, I know that like actually making pacts and relationships between countries is really important. And I think that initial step in researching, what's already been done with the UN can lead you to, formulating those resolutions about what can be done for, especially in terms of things that are happening in the current day. So again, make sure that any resolutions that you do research or treaties that you do talk about are pertaining to something that's definitely going on like today, like as in right now. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
I'm going to answer one more question really quick. I think Ava, you asked, how did the head chairs become head chairs? Well, we all did JMUN when we were in middle school. So that's the first step. So you're doing great so far. And then basically throughout high school or throughout our time in middle school, we made sure to commit a lot to it, and we put our work in, and we talked a lot during conference. And then once we got to high school, we were given the opportunity to be staff members. And so I don't know about Sierra, but I personally was a vice chair in 10th grade. And then I got promoted to a head chair last year, which unfortunately I wasn't able to do. But there's you can become different positions when you're in 10th grade through 12th grade in order to help out with the conference. And then, do we research all the topics that our committee includes, or do we just choose one? The same thing with our position papers. Do we cover all of our nation's stances, or just one? So basically with that, you want to try to write a position paper on each topic in your committee, but if you don't get to all of them, it's not the end of the world. So you try to research all the topics because we're most likely going to talk about them in conference. But it's you don't need to thoroughly research.
Yeah, just for clarification, this is all up to your advisor. Also, your advisor may require a certain amount of position papers, but you're going to write one individual paper for one individual topic. Whether that means you want to write about all three topics or just one of them, each time you write about a new topic, it has to be an individual paper, and then your country policy will change depending on the topic because, like Olivia was talking about International Maritime Organization, you have mega ships and then you have sustainable energy for ships. Your country's policy might be different for those two things. So each little section of the position paper is going to be slightly different. So you're going to be writing 3 different papers for each topic.
Okay, and now we're gonna move. Oh, sorry.
One more question, and then it kind of ties into this last section, so I'll just quickly go over it because you're going to be talking about it anyway. But the question is, when making allies, is there certain limits other than they have to be reasonable and feasible? So Olivia's going to go over Caucus Blocks next, but in general, just really fast, yes, there is limits other than it being reasonable, mainly geography and political ties and maybe even unions that are already formed like the EU, and we'll go on to that next, so yeah.
Okay, so what should alliances be realistic? Form alliances that would actually occur in the UN. So if you're, I keep bringing this up, but if you're the United States delegate and your best friend is the Russia delegate, I know that you really want to be with your best friend, but that does not make sense at all. I know a lot of first-year delegates. I did this. Of course I did this because I was scared, and I was in 6th grade, and there was all these 9th graders that were talking a lot. And so I was in a caucus block with my friend, but it doesn't make sense. If you're in a block if you make allies with your friends and it doesn't make sense, try to avoid that because it'll basically just put limitations on you. And so you also want to do ones that are mutually beneficial. So if you're with countries that you would be within the UN, they will likely be on similar standpoints with you for this policy. So an example, when I was in 9th grade, I actually was in an alliance with Sierra's brother. And because I was Sweden and he was USA. Yeah. And so we had a similar standpoint on the topic that we were talking about. And so basically when you're looking for alliances, you don't want to look for, who do I know from my school? You want to look for who is, which countries can I gain from and which ones would actually occur. And so this is basically a sheet that lays everything out for you. It's called Caucus Blocks. And so it takes into account different geography blocks and different so Latin American groups. So that's number 2. That's a big group of countries right there that you could ally yourself with if you're, let's say you're Brazil and you're I want to ally with Uruguay because they're also a Latin American country. And then you can also look at different countries have specific religions that are like their main religion, like the Islamic group. Yeah, I pronounced that right. And so then there's also ones that have to do with, most of them have to do with geography. And then there's also some of them that like aren't in a certain block, which is the non-aligned. So basically this just lays out for you, like, what should I be focusing on when I'm trying to find allies? So like if you're the Ukraine, and then you also want to make sure you're doing your nation guides, because I was gonna say you could ally with Russia, but that's probably not a good idea right now if you're focusing on the conflicts between Ukraine and Russia. So if you're Ukraine, you probably don't want to ally with Russia, but you also probably don't want to ally with Thailand, because they're all the way across the Caucus block and you have nothing in common with them. So you probably want to ally with people more like Hungary or Poland or another ones in the Eastern European group. And so basically your next steps are reading the background guides. I know people like to avoid this because it's a lot of reading, but they're really helpful when you go into them. You get a better sense of it, especially because we added the case studies this year. It basically just like gives you an example of how you could write about these topics in a more specific sense. You want to also research your country, use the nation guides. They're like, this is very important for you to do. Sorry, I just missed like a bunch of questions. I'm gonna go back to talk about those.
Yeah, there's one question I'll talk about really fast. All right, so it says, can you make alliances with other schools, JMU and MUN delegates? That is the point. So a lot of the times you want to not make allies with your fellow delegates from your school, because a lot of the time they'll be, I think that it's kind of set up in a way that countries that are given to schools are not necessarily like all from the EU or like all from a particular, caucusing block like number 7. So that you definitely want to branch out, and most people will not be from your school. So thus most people will be, people who you do want to get in contact with that are from your caucusing block that you've never met before. And a lot of the time they'll be, I guess we don't have that this year, but in previous years, there would always be like a little mingling time like out front of the JMUN conference, and you'd kind of talk to people from other schools and kind of get to know them, and people from your committee, and get to know their allies and things like that. And one thing that I would recommend is going through the conferences, the committees that you're in, and going through the countries that are going to be at the conference, and highlighting the countries, or having like a little list, and then going to the caucusing block and then highlighting the countries on there that are going to be at the conference. So then you can see like, oh yeah, like there's going to be like 4 people in caucusing block number 2 that are in my that I'm going to be allied with, so I'll look out for them like specifically during the conference. And so that's really helpful, and that's something that can kind of get you started on forming relations with your delegates. So yeah.
Okay, I had one person ask, where's Japan? They're in caucusing block 8, right over here in this little corner with China and Mongolia. And then what do you do for the US, because they're not in the block? Basically, you're going to have to do a little more research for the United States, because they have like very different policies, so you're going to want to look like how they feel about the specific topics for your country. Or not country, how they feel about the specific topics for your committee, and then just like see what other countries are in line with that. And then, is there a way we can look at this slideshow after the webinar is over? Ella, are we going to be sending this out?
We will definitely be sending a version of this to Your advisors, and then how your advisors distribute it is up to them. But a lot of these resources are all online also, and a lot of this information is online. And if for some reason any of this is nowhere to be found, you can always talk to your advisor and then have your advisor talk to us, or talk directly to us at the Secretary General email, which is on the website.
And then another question is, how do we know who's in our committee? So in terms of knowing which countries are going to be in the conferences, generally all of the committee spots are filled in a delegation. So you'll have the same countries that are in each committee across the board. Obviously, some might not have a position filled in a particular committee, but you will know by going on the SDR JMUN website. And I believe that it is updated, so you can go on the tab that says schools attending. Actually, I don't know if there's a tab now. Ella, says it, right?
So it'll be under their under the advisors section or the delegate section. There is a country assignments tab, and that tab will have every single country and what school they're from. And also another new thing we're trying to do this year, part of the reason you guys, if you registered, which we're hoping you all registered, you noticed that one of the questions was, what committee are you in? What is your nation? So one of the things we're doing this year with the committee resource documents that I mentioned, that I added in earlier, we're listing all the attending nations based off of who's attending the webinar. And we're going to try to get that information from advisors as well, so that you can start to see who is going to be in what committee, and that'll be a list that we send out. But for now, it's on the website under country assignments.
And then lastly, I don't know if South Sudan is a different country than Sudan, actually. I'm pretty sure it's not. I'm pretty sure it's the same.
I think it's 2 different countries.
Is it 2 different countries?
I
don't know where
South Sudan. So just look up South Sudan and all the
okay.
countries. All the information you need for South Sudan will be when you look up South Sudan. Sudan is a different country. We don't have a Sudan though in JMUN right now, just a South Sudan.
Okay, yeah. Sudan is in number 7, but yeah. It's like how the Democratic Republic of the Congo is very different from the Republic of the Congo. Yeah. So another lesson. A lot of countries, they sound really similar, and they're not. Democratic Republic of the Congo is the poorest country in the world. Republic of the Congo is not. And so, yeah, we're going to get back into this. Read background guides, research your countries. That's very important. Research the topics. This one, you want to make sure you are looking at how the topics relate to your country a lot. And so that goes with reading the background guides. You want to look up the links that they gave you on your own, and maybe do some research outside of that. And then basically just try to connect your country to these topics. And I know sometimes that can be hard, but that's what JMUN is all about. And then number 4, get ready for the position paper webinar. What we're going to be writing next are position papers. And so I think we have a webinar for that in a couple weeks. And yeah, any more questions?
And you can put it into the chat or unmute yourself. And then also have your questions ready for the next webinar too, as point number 4 said. So you can feel free to ask things pertaining to this topic or researching in general.
Oh, before everyone leaves, make sure you're not plagiarizing, because we've had that a lot in the past where people take an entire chunk from the background guide or from another website. Make sure you're not doing that, because we want the writing to be from you guys, and unfortunately we do have to take off points from your position papers if you do that, and we don't like doing that. It's not fun for us.
It's against the law.
It's also illegal, but
and I know that there have been people in the past who try to be sneaky and try to be a little bit lazy and not do all the work, but if you plagiarize, we will know. We wrote those background guides. It's our wording. So and we grade them. And that also goes for any UN website, any official UN website, anything on the internet you need to reword for yourself. Not only because it's not good to plagiarize, but also because we want you to develop these skills for yourself. We want you to learn how to research and write, and you're going to need that in the future as future high schoolers and college students. So learn how to write yourself, reword things, and don't plagiarize.
And then I also just got a question, how are position papers graded? Basically, we just have an entire like spreadsheet.
No, you're cutting out, Olivia.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. Wait, just like
Yay. Okay. Oh, okay. And then somebody also just asked, what are position papers? Well, I really suggest going to the position paper webinar. Basically, it's just talking about how your country can relate to this topic. So saying your position on it. And then basically there's 3 paragraphs. There's background information one. There's one about your country's involvement and the United Nations involvement. We're going to be grading it based on that, basically. Like, do you include enough statistics? Do you include enough information about the background? Do you just restate what was said in the background guide, you know? And then
the position paper webinar, there will be a document release that will help you with all the things you need to include and also the things we look for. You're not going to get the official rubric with each of the points because that's our special secret document. But and maybe if you apply to be a staffer, you'll get to see what that rubric looks like later on. But for now, that'll go out to you later, and you'll get to see what we're looking for.
it's so trippy to look at it after like doing position papers for so many years.
Like, wow. Yeah, also focusing on not a specific topic. I know resolutions a lot of the time are focused on a particular region and a particular, issue within a region, but position papers are more focused on the overall topic at hand and, how that impacts, international ties and relations and things of that nature. So make sure you have that down. So, all right, bye. Or someone said that in the chat.
I think that, do you want to give a second for any more lasting questions?
I have a question real quick,
Yeah.
or actually 2. Hi, so my first question is about the caucus bonds, the slide. What is the purpose with the numbering? So the listings of every country on each number, is it like alliances for
the
each
graphic
country?
organizer look better and understandable. The numbers don't mean anything. The names of the caucusing groups, that's associated with the numbers, like a key, but that they're actual names for each group.
So that's for so the named countries on each number, they're like first, like recommended alliances?
Not specifically, because sometimes you don't have, like Ukraine and Russia, you're not going to want to ally with them. But a lot of the time that's a jumping off point for you to be like, oh, these are some countries near me. Maybe I should look in to see if I have similar policies to them, because a lot of times you will.
Okay, cool. And my second question was for when I registered online on the website, it was asking for the nation, but the committee. So the committee that you sign up for, what's the purpose behind it? And does that tie in with the position papers?
So the committee you are assigned to?
Yeah.
Which committee are you on?
The 4th for Austria.
Okay, so basically each committee that you're in will have more specific topics. I am so bad about the numbered committees.
The disarmament committee.
Yep. Yeah.
4th is not the disarmament committee.
Oh, no, it's not the disarmament committee. Is it?
Yes, so I can pull up the agenda right now. So 4th committee is talking about peacekeeping, nuclear power, space mining. So each committee has different topics that you're writing about and debating about. Olivia does IMO, and that's international maritime, so it's stuff in the ocean. 4th has different stuff to talk about. So when you're writing papers and debating with these allies and discussing solutions, you're specifically talking about those topics. You're not talking about anything else.
And then towards the end, towards the end of the year, when we actually get to conference, you'll only be in a Zoom room with everybody else who's in 4th committee, just the people in 4th committee. And when you go to office hours, you're just going to office hours with people in 4th committee. The only time you'll actually be with anybody else from other committees is actually at these webinars. So.
And then really fast too, in terms of the specificity of the committees, they mirror the topics discussed in the UN committees, in the actual United Nations. So for example, if you're in 3rd committee, it'd be about human rights, the issues of the environment we talked about in UNEP, things like that. So they're closely tied to the general overview of the committee that is discussed in the actual United Nations. So if you want to look up your committee and look up in general what they focus on in the United Nations, that'd be really helpful as like a starting point too. So.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions?
We got one.
Yeah, it says I wasn't able to make it to my last meeting, so I'm not sure country I was assigned to. I can check the website right now, see what country Challenger has.
Actually, Challenger has multiple. Yeah, so that's a question for your advisor. Overall, if you don't know your country and if you don't know your committee, those are questions for your advisor. We don't organize that for you, unfortunately. Your advisor will know all of that. So the person that you talked to who told you how to come to this meeting, all of that is your advisor. Challenger advisor is...
Yeah, either Kenya or Cuba.
The Challenger...
Oh, wait, the advisor. No, I can think.
So Challenger, you have a high school helper. Her name is Sindhu, but you also have Andrew Morrow, which is your advisor. So those are two people you can reach out to.
It's usually a teacher, and if not, it's a high schooler leading a club. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I think that's about it. I know we're a little bit over time-wise, and y'all are probably hungry and got homework and stuff, so I'm just gonna let Sierra and Olivia give their last final notes and goodbyes.
All right, well, thank you guys for coming. I will see you at another webinar or during conferences, and thank you so much for coming. It was really a pleasure listening to you guys' questions and your engagement in this topic. So good luck. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, guys.